It's official. The Street Outlaws empire is crumbling from the inside out, and what we've uncovered will absolutely devastate everything you thought you knew about this legendary racing dynasty. We're not talking about your typical reality TV drama here. This is a full-blown catastrophe involving death, drugs, federal investigations, and cover-ups that reach the highest levels of Discovery Channel's corporate structure. The bodies are piling up, the jail cells are filling, and the secrets that have been buried for over a decade are finally exploding into the light. For years, fans have watched these daredevils push cars and lives to the very edge, thinking it was all controlled chaos for the cameras. But what happens when the race ends not with a checkered flag, but with a sudden silence or the cold clang of a jail cell door? What we've discovered goes far beyond anything the mainstream media has dared to report. This isn't just about fast cars and faster money. This is about a culture of violence, addiction, and death that has been systematically covered up by one of television's most profitable franchises. The shocking truth is that multiple cast members are either dead, behind bars, or fighting for their lives in ways that make their on-screen battles look like child's play. And the most devastating part? The network knew, the producers knew, the sponsors knew, they all knew, and they kept filming anyway, turning real human tragedy into entertainment gold, while families were left to pick up the pieces. Here's where this gets absolutely nuclear. We've obtained exclusive insider information, leaked documents, and testimonies from people who were there when the cameras stopped rolling. What they've revealed will shake the Street Outlaws community to its core and expose a pattern of negligence, exploitation, and cover-ups that goes all the way to the top. We're talking about deaths that could have been prevented, arrests that were hushed up, and addictions that were enabled for the sake of ratings. The stakes couldn't be higher. We're dealing with federal investigations, OSHA violations, wrongful death lawsuits, and a web of corruption that threatens to bring down not just individual careers, but the entire Street Outlaws brand. Multiple sources close to the production have confirmed that what you're about to learn has been deliberately kept from the public for years. The network's legal team has been working overtime to suppress this information, but the truth has a way of surfacing, especially when lives are on the line. Sources familiar with the inner workings of the Street Outlaws production have painted a picture so disturbing that even hardened industry veterans are calling it unprecedented. We're talking about a culture where safety protocols were routinely ignored, where cast members' personal struggles were exploited for content, and where the pursuit of ratings took precedence over basic human decency. The evidence we've gathered includes police reports, hospital records, court documents, and testimonies from people who risked everything to speak out. What makes this even more explosive is the timing. As we speak, federal investigators are digging deeper into the circumstances surrounding multiple incidents that have rocked the Street Outlaws family. The Nevada Department of Transportation is conducting its own investigation. OSHA has opened multiple case files, and families who lost loved ones are demanding answers that the network has refused to provide. The credibility of our sources cannot be questioned. We're talking about former cast members, current production staff, emergency responders, and law enforcement officials who have firsthand knowledge of what really happened behind the scenes. These aren't disgruntled employees looking for attention. These are people with decades of experience in the industry who are horrified by what they witnessed and can no longer stay silent. But here's what nobody saw coming. The scope of this scandal extends far beyond individual tragedies. We've uncovered evidence of systematic failures, deliberate cover-ups, and a corporate culture that prioritized profit over people at every turn. The documents we've obtained reveal a pattern of behavior that suggests this wasn't just negligence, it was willful disregard for human life disguised as entertainment. If you're already hooked by this insanity, smash that hype button, because this story gets 10x more explosive. What we're about to reveal will fundamentally change how you view not just Street Outlaws, but the entire reality TV industry. The families of the victims deserve to have their stories told, and the public deserves to know the truth about what really happens when the cameras stop rolling and the real consequences begin. The internet is already buzzing with speculation, but what we've uncovered goes far deeper than anything that's been reported. We're talking about a conspiracy of silence that has protected powerful people while destroying lives. The evidence is overwhelming, the testimonies are devastating, and the implications are career-ending for everyone involved. This is the story they never wanted you to hear, but it's the story that needs to be told. Let's rewind to the beginning and understand how Street Outlaws became the monster it is today. When the show first premiered in 2013, nobody, not even Discovery Channel executives, believed it would become the cultural phenomenon it eventually became. The concept was simple: follow underground street racers as they competed for money, respect, and the coveted #1 spot on the list. What started as a small-budget reality show about illegal racing quickly evolved into a multi-million-dollar empire that would spawn numerous spin-offs and make household names out of previously unknown racers. The early days were genuinely grassroots. Independent racing groups were already filming their own races and posting them online, building massive followings on YouTube and social media. When Discovery came calling, these racers thought they had nothing to lose. They held nothing back during that first season, bringing raw authenticity and genuine passion that immediately captivated audiences. The show's success was built on the very real relationships, rivalries, and risks that defined the underground racing scene. But success brought scrutiny, and scrutiny brought problems. As the show's popularity exploded, so did the pressure to deliver increasingly dramatic content. What had once been organic competition between friends became manufactured drama designed to boost ratings. The racers, many of whom had never dealt with the pressures of fame and fortune, found themselves thrust into a world they weren't prepared for. The money was good, really good, but it came with strings attached that would eventually strangle some of them. The transformation wasn't immediate, but it was inevitable. As the show grew, so did the budgets, the stakes, and the expectations. Racers who had once competed for a few $100s were suddenly dealing with tens of thousands in prize money. Cars that had been built in backyard garages were now receiving six-figure budgets from sponsors. And the pressure to perform, both on the track and for the cameras, became overwhelming for many cast members who were simply not equipped to handle the spotlight. The characters at the center of this empire each brought their own demons, dreams, and ultimately their own downfalls. Ryan Fellows wasn't just another racer looking for his 15 minutes of fame. He was a true car enthusiast who lived and breathed the automotive world. His passion was infectious, his dedication was unquestionable, and his love for his family was evident to everyone who knew him. But that same passion that made him a fan favorite would ultimately lead to his tragic end on a Las Vegas strip, dying in a fiery crash while filming for the show that had made him famous. Christopher "Kentucky" Ellis represented the backbone of the Street Outlaws operation, the skilled mechanics and behind-the-scenes workers who made the magic happen. Kentucky wasn't seeking the spotlight. He was content to work with his hands, building and maintaining the powerful machines that roared down the asphalt. His quick wit and friendly demeanor made him beloved by cast and crew alike. But behind his smile, Kentucky was fighting battles that nobody knew about. He struggles with addiction that would eventually claim his life in a quiet, private tragedy that revealed the hidden costs of life in the fast lane. JJ DeBoss, the Memphis kingpin, built his racing empire from nothing, earning respect through his sharp mind and deal-making abilities. But JJ's journey to the top was paved with poor choices and wrong decisions that included an 8-year stint in federal prison. His past wasn't hidden. He spoke openly about learning from his mistakes and using his time behind bars as motivation to build something better. However, the streets have a way of following you, and JJ's legal troubles were far from over, culminating in violent incidents that would be captured on camera and lead to new charges. Chuck Seitzinger, known for his intense racing style and his formidable car, Death Trap, represented the old-school mentality of street racing. His connection to the racing world ran deep, stretching back to his high school days when he first gripped a steering wheel with competitive intent. Chuck's talent was undeniable. He earned Rookie of the Year honors and championship titles that cemented his status as a formidable force. But success on the track couldn't mask the personal demons he was fighting, issues with anger and substance abuse that would eventually land him behind bars. The timeline of events leading to this crisis reads like a Greek tragedy, with each incident building upon the last until the entire structure became unsustainable. It started with small warning signs that were easy to dismiss. Minor accidents, personality conflicts, and behind-the-scenes drama that seemed typical for any reality show. But as the years progressed, the incidents became more serious, the stakes higher, and the consequences more devastating. The first major red flag came in the early seasons, when cast members began showing signs of the pressure that comes with sudden fame and fortune. Racers who had once been content with small-time competition were now dealing with national attention, social media scrutiny, and the constant pressure to perform for cameras. Some thrived under this pressure, but others began to crack. Substance abuse became a problem for several cast members, though it was carefully hidden from public view by the network's PR machine. As the show's popularity grew, so did the risks. Races became more dangerous, with higher speeds and more challenging conditions. The pressure to create dramatic television led to situations that prioritized entertainment value over safety. Former cast members have described a culture where taking unnecessary risks was not just encouraged, but expected. Those who expressed concerns about safety were often marginalized or written off the show entirely. The financial pressures were equally destructive. While the show generated millions in revenue for Discovery Channel, the cast members often found themselves in precarious financial situations. Many invested heavily in their cars and racing operations, taking on debt and financial obligations that required them to continue participating in increasingly dangerous situations. The network's contracts were notoriously one-sided, giving the production company significant control over the cast members' lives while providing little in the way of support or protection. The first warning signs everyone missed were hiding in plain sight, but the intoxicating combination of money, fame, and adrenaline made it easy to ignore the growing problems. Cast members began exhibiting erratic behavior both on and off camera. Some became increasingly isolated from their families and friends. Others developed obvious substance abuse problems that were carefully edited out of the final broadcasts. The network's response was always the same: minimize the problems, control the narrative, and keep filming. Behind the scenes, production staff were raising concerns about the safety protocols and the well-being of the cast members. Multiple sources have confirmed that there were numerous incidents that never made it to air: accidents, overdoses, arrests, and violent confrontations that were covered up to protect the show's image. The network's legal team worked overtime to suppress negative stories and silence potential whistleblowers through non-disclosure agreements and financial settlements. The warning signs extended beyond individual cast members to the show's overall culture. The glorification of illegal street racing while entertaining was sending dangerous messages to viewers and inspiring copycat behavior that led to accidents and deaths across the country. Law enforcement agencies began expressing concerns about the show's influence, but their warnings fell on deaf ears as the ratings continued to climb and the profits continued to flow. But here's where it gets absolutely nuclear. What happened to Ryan Fellows on that fateful night in Las Vegas wasn't just a tragic accident. It was the inevitable result of a systematic failure that had been building for years, and the evidence we've uncovered suggests that his death could have been prevented if the network had prioritized safety over spectacle. Multiple sources close to the production have revealed that there were serious concerns about the racing conditions that night, concerns that were overruled by executives who were more worried about staying on schedule than protecting their talent. The official story was that Ryan lost control of his gold Nissan 240Z during the 8th race of 9 planned for that evening, rolled over violently near the finish line, and died in the resulting fire. But witnesses to the events have painted a much more disturbing picture of what really happened. According to insiders who were present that night, there were multiple safety violations that should have shut down production immediately. The track conditions were suboptimal, the safety equipment was inadequate, and the emergency response protocols were insufficient for the level of risk involved. Documents obtained through sources familiar with the OSHA investigation reveal that the Nevada Department of Transportation had issued permits for the road closure, but those permits came with specific safety requirements that may not have been fully implemented. The investigation found that several critical safety measures were either missing or improperly executed, creating conditions that significantly increased the risk of exactly the type of accident that claimed Ryan's life. The most damning revelation is that production staff were aware of these deficiencies but chose to proceed anyway. The detailed breakdown of the shocking truth goes far deeper than anyone imagined. Ryan Fellows wasn't just another casualty of dangerous racing. He was a victim of a production culture that had become so focused on creating dramatic television that basic safety protocols were treated as optional suggestions rather than mandatory requirements. The evidence suggests that there were at least 3 separate opportunities to prevent the tragedy, but each time, the decision was made to prioritize the filming schedule over the safety of the participants. The first opportunity came during the pre-race safety briefing, which multiple sources describe as perfunctory at best. Unlike professional racing organizations that conduct thorough safety inspections and briefings, the Street Outlaws production relied on minimal safety protocols that were often rushed or skipped entirely when time was short. On the night Ryan died, witnesses report that the safety briefing was abbreviated due to scheduling pressures, and several critical safety points were not adequately covered. The second opportunity came when track conditions began to deteriorate during the evening. Several racers expressed concerns about the surface conditions and visibility, but these concerns were dismissed by production staff, who were under pressure to complete the planned races. Former cast members have described a culture where expressing safety concerns was seen as being difficult or unprofessional, creating an environment where racers felt pressured to participate in dangerous conditions rather than risk being labeled as troublemakers. The third and most critical opportunity came just minutes before Ryan's fatal crash. Multiple witnesses report that there were clear signs that something was wrong with either the track conditions or Ryan's car, but the race proceeded anyway. The decision to continue racing under these circumstances represents a catastrophic failure of judgment that cost a man his life and devastated his family. The fact that this was the 8th of 9 planned races suggests that schedule pressure may have played a role in the decision to continue, despite obvious risks. The investigation has also revealed disturbing details about the emergency response. While the official story suggests that bystanders immediately rushed to help, the reality is that the emergency response was delayed and inadequate. The fire suppression equipment was insufficient for the type of fire that engulfed Ryan's car, and the medical response was hampered by poor planning and inadequate resources. These failures turned what might have been a survivable accident into a fatal tragedy. The immediate reactions and fallout from Ryan's death sent shockwaves through the Street Outlaws community, but the network's response was telling. Instead of taking responsibility for the safety failures that contributed to the tragedy, Discovery Channel immediately went into damage control mode. Legal teams were deployed to minimize liability, PR firms were hired to control the narrative, and cast members were reportedly pressured to sign additional non-disclosure agreements to prevent them from speaking publicly about what they witnessed. The network's official statement was carefully crafted to express sympathy for Ryan's family while avoiding any admission of responsibility or acknowledgement of the safety failures that contributed to his death. Behind the scenes, however, the response was much more aggressive. Multiple sources report that cast members who expressed concerns about safety or who suggested that the network bore some responsibility for the tragedy were threatened with legal action or removal from the show. Ryan's family was reportedly pressured to accept a financial settlement in exchange for agreeing not to pursue legal action against the network or the production company. While the terms of any settlement remain confidential, the sources close to the family suggest that they felt they had little choice but to accept the network's offer rather than face years of expensive litigation against a corporation with unlimited legal resources. The settlement reportedly included strict non-disclosure provisions that prevent the family from speaking publicly about the circumstances of Ryan's death. The impact on the remaining cast members was profound, but largely hidden from public view. Several racers reportedly considered leaving the show after Ryan's death, but were contractually obligated to continue participating. Others developed serious psychological issues, including depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder, but received little support from the network. The message was clear: the show must go on, regardless of the human cost. The social media explosion analysis reveals how the network's damage control efforts extended into the digital realm. Within hours of Ryan's death being announced, a coordinated campaign began to control the narrative on social media platforms. Positive posts about Ryan's life and career were amplified, while posts questioning the circumstances of his death or criticizing the network's safety protocols were systematically suppressed or removed. The evidence we're about to show you is so damning, you need to hype this video to help us expose the truth that powerful people want buried. The network's social media team worked around the clock to monitor and respond to negative comments, often using fake accounts to post supportive messages and downvote critical posts. This manipulation of public opinion represents a sophisticated effort to control the narrative and prevent the truth about the safety failures from gaining traction. The fact that the network felt the need to engage in such extensive damage control suggests that they were well aware of their culpability in Ryan's death. The internet turned into detectives the moment news of Ryan Fellowes' death broke, and what they uncovered was far more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. Amateur investigators, many of them longtime Street Outlaws fans, began piecing together evidence from social media posts, behind-the-scenes footage, and public records that painted a picture of systematic negligence and cover-ups that extended far beyond a single tragic accident. Their findings would eventually catch the attention of professional journalists and law enforcement officials, leading to investigations that are still ongoing today. The digital detective work began with a simple question: how could such an experienced racer lose control of his car under what were supposed to be controlled conditions? Fans began analyzing every piece of available footage from that night, frame by frame, looking for clues about what really happened. What they found were inconsistencies in the official story, evidence of safety violations, and signs that the production team was more concerned with getting dramatic footage than ensuring the safety of their participants. One of the most damning pieces of evidence uncovered by internet investigators was a series of social media posts from that evening that showed clear safety violations. Photos and videos posted by spectators and crew members revealed that safety barriers were improperly positioned, emergency equipment was inadequate, and track conditions were far from optimal. These posts were quickly deleted after Ryan's death, but not before they were archived by vigilant fans who sensed that something wasn't right about the official story. Multiple insider sources and leaked evidence have painted an even more disturbing picture of what really happened that night and in the months leading up to the tragedy. Former production staff members, speaking on condition of anonymity, have described a culture of reckless disregard for safety that permeated every level of the Street Outlaws operation. These sources report that safety concerns were routinely dismissed, that proper safety equipment was often unavailable or inadequate, and that cast members were pressured to participate in dangerous situations regardless of the risks involved. One particularly damaging leak came from a former safety coordinator who worked on multiple Street Outlaws productions. This individual, who has since left the industry entirely, provided detailed documentation of safety violations that were reported to network executives but never addressed. The documents show a pattern of cost-cutting measures that compromise safety, including the use of substandard safety equipment, inadequate emergency response planning, and the elimination of safety positions that were deemed unnecessary by budget-conscious executives. The leaked evidence also includes internal communications between network executives and production staff that reveal a shocking disregard for the well-being of cast members. Email chains obtained by sources show executives explicitly prioritizing ratings and schedule adherence over safety concerns. In one particularly damning exchange, a network executive reportedly told production staff to stop being so paranoid about safety and to focus on getting the dramatic footage we need to keep viewers engaged. Perhaps most disturbing are the leaked medical records and incident reports that document numerous accidents and injuries that were never reported to the public. These documents reveal that Ryan Fellowes' death was not an isolated incident, but rather the tragic culmination of a pattern of accidents and near misses that should have served as warning signs. The records show that multiple cast members had been injured in racing-related accidents, some seriously, but these incidents were covered up to protect the show's image. The investigation has also uncovered evidence of financial improprieties that may have contributed to the unsafe conditions. Sources familiar with the show's budget have revealed that safety-related expenses were often the first to be cut when productions went over budget. This cost-cutting extended to everything from safety equipment and emergency response services to proper track preparation and vehicle inspections. The message was clear. Safety was a luxury that the production couldn't afford, not a necessity that couldn't be compromised. Behind the scenes, power struggles have also played a role in creating the dangerous conditions that led to Ryan's death and other tragedies. Multiple sources describe a toxic work environment where safety-conscious staff members were marginalized or fired, while those who were willing to cut corners and take risks were rewarded with promotions and increased responsibilities. This created a culture where speaking up about safety concerns was seen as career suicide, leading to a conspiracy of silence that allowed dangerous practices to continue unchecked. The power struggles extended to the cast members themselves, many of whom found themselves caught between their desire to stay safe and their need to remain on the show for financial reasons. Several former cast members have described feeling trapped by their contracts, which reportedly included harsh financial penalties for anyone who refused to participate in scheduled races or who spoke publicly about safety concerns. This created a situation where cast members felt they had no choice but to participate in increasingly dangerous situations, even when they had serious concerns about their safety. The network's relationship with local law enforcement and regulatory agencies has also come under scrutiny. Documents obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests reveal that there were multiple complaints filed with various agencies about the show's safety practices, but these complaints were often dismissed or ignored due to the show's high profile and economic impact. The investigation has revealed a pattern of regulatory capture, where agencies that should have been overseeing the production were instead protecting it from scrutiny. The financial and legal implications of these revelations are staggering. Legal experts estimate that the network could face hundreds of millions of dollars in liability if the full extent of their negligence is proven in court. The wrongful death lawsuit filed by Ryan Fellow's family is just the beginning. Multiple other families are reportedly considering legal action, and several cast members are exploring their options for breaking their contracts and seeking damages for the physical and psychological harm they've suffered. The financial impact extends beyond potential legal settlements to include the cost of implementing proper safety protocols, which industry experts estimate could add millions of dollars to each season's budget. The network has reportedly been exploring ways to reduce these costs, including moving production to locations with less stringent safety requirements and hiring cheaper, less experienced safety personnel. These cost-cutting measures could potentially make the situation even more dangerous for cast members and crew. The legal implications also extend to potential criminal charges. Law enforcement sources have confirmed that multiple agencies are investigating whether criminal negligence charges should be filed against network executives and production staff. The evidence of willful disregard for safety, combined with the tragic consequences, could potentially support charges of criminally negligent homicide or reckless endangerment. While no charges have been filed yet, sources close to the investigation suggest that criminal charges are a real possibility. But that's not even the most shocking part. While the network was desperately trying to cover up the circumstances surrounding Ryan Fellows' death, another tragedy was unfolding that would expose an even darker side of the Street Outlaws empire. Christopher "Kentucky" Ellis, the beloved mechanic who had been with the show since its first season, was found dead in his Oklahoma City home under circumstances that revealed a hidden epidemic of substance abuse and mental health issues that had been plaguing the cast for years. The official cause of Kentucky's death was listed as a drug overdose, but the circumstances surrounding his final days paint a picture of a man who had been abandoned by the very people who had profited from his talents. Sources close to Kentucky report that he had been struggling with addiction for years, but instead of getting the help he needed, he was enabled and exploited by a production system that valued his skills more than his well-being. The network's response to his death was even more callous than their handling of Ryan's tragedy. Kentucky was quickly written out of the show's history, with minimal acknowledgement of his contributions or the circumstances of his death. What makes Kentucky's story even more tragic is that his addiction issues were well known to the production staff and network executives, but no effort was made to get him the help he needed. Multiple sources report that Kentucky's drug use was actually encouraged by some members of the production team, who saw his altered state as making him more compliant and easier to manipulate. This represents a level of exploitation that goes far beyond simple negligence. It's a deliberate abuse of a vulnerable person for the sake of television content. The investigation into Kentucky's death has revealed that he was not alone in his struggles. Multiple cast members have battled addiction issues, often exacerbated by the pressures of fame, the easy availability of money, and the toxic culture that surrounded the production. The network's response to these issues has been consistently inadequate. Instead of providing support and treatment resources, they have typically chosen to either exploit the addiction for dramatic content or quietly remove the affected cast member from the show. New evidence emerges that suggests the network was not only aware of the widespread addiction issues among cast members, but was actively profiting from them. Internal documents leaked by former production staff reveal that storylines were often built around cast members' personal struggles, including their battles with addiction, family problems, and legal issues. This exploitation of personal tragedy for entertainment purposes represents a new low in reality television, even by the industry's already questionable standards. The evidence includes production notes that explicitly discuss how to leverage cast members' personal problems for dramatic effect. One particularly disturbing document outlines a strategy for maximizing the entertainment value of a cast member's addiction issues, including suggestions for filming them in compromised states and creating storylines that would exacerbate their problems. The callousness of these documents is breathtaking. They treat human suffering as nothing more than raw material for television content. Perhaps most damning is evidence that the network actively discouraged cast members from seeking treatment for their addiction issues. Multiple sources report that cast members who entered rehab or sought other forms of treatment were threatened with removal from the show or financial penalties. This created a situation where cast members felt they had to choose between their health and their livelihood, a choice that no one should ever have to make. The new evidence also reveals that the network's insurance policies specifically excluded coverage for addiction-related issues, meaning that cast members who needed treatment were left to pay for it themselves or go without. This policy effectively incentivized cast members to hide their problems rather than seek help, creating a dangerous situation that contributed to multiple tragedies, including Kentucky's death. Key players' desperate responses to these revelations have been telling in their transparency and desperation. Network executives have gone into full crisis mode, hiring teams of lawyers and PR specialists to contain the damage and control the narrative. Their strategy has been to minimize the network's responsibility while shifting blame to the cast members themselves, portraying them as adults who made their own choices rather than vulnerable individuals who were exploited by a predatory system. The network's legal team has been particularly aggressive in their efforts to suppress information about the addiction issues and the network's role in enabling them. They have sent cease and desist letters to multiple media outlets, threatened legal action against former employees who have spoken out, and used their considerable resources to intimidate potential witnesses. This heavy-handed approach has only served to draw more attention to the issues they're trying to hide. Discovery Channel executives have also been working behind the scenes to distance themselves from the Street Outlaws production, reportedly considering whether to cancel the show entirely or transfer it to a different network. Internal sources report that there have been heated discussions about the show's future, with some executives arguing that the liability and reputational damage are too great to continue, while others insist that the show's profitability makes it worth the risk. The cast members' responses have been equally revealing. Many have remained silent, bound by non-disclosure agreements and fearful of legal retaliation. Others have begun speaking out, despite the risks, because they feel a moral obligation to honor the memory of their fallen friends and to prevent future tragedies. These brave individuals have provided much of the evidence that has exposed the network's negligence and exploitation. Public opinion shifts dramatically as more evidence emerges about the network's role in these tragedies. What began as sympathy for the victims and their families has evolved into anger at the system that failed them. Social media platforms are flooded with calls for boycotts of the show and its sponsors, demands for criminal investigations, and support for the families of the victims. Your hype points are literally helping us fund more investigations like this. AFTU 2. Hit that button if you want us to keep digging deeper. The shift in public opinion has been swift and decisive. Fans who once defended the show and its cast are now demanding accountability from the network. Online forums that were once filled with discussions about racing and cars are now focused on the safety failures and exploitation that have been exposed. The show's social media accounts, once filled with positive comments and fan interactions, are now dominated by criticism and demands for justice. The impact on the show's ratings and profitability has been immediate and severe. Advertisers are pulling their support, streaming numbers are declining, and merchandise sales have plummeted. The network's attempts to control the narrative through social media manipulation and PR campaigns have largely backfired, as audiences have become increasingly skeptical of official statements and more willing to believe the accounts of whistleblowers and victims' families. This isn't just about Street Outlaws anymore. The revelations about safety failures, exploitation, and cover-ups have sent shockwaves throughout the entire reality television industry. What started as an investigation into a single show's problems has evolved into a broader examination of how reality TV productions operate and the human cost of creating authentic entertainment. The implications extend far beyond Discovery Channel to include every network, production company, and advertiser that profits from reality television content. The Street Outlaws scandal has become a watershed moment for the reality TV industry, forcing executives across the entertainment landscape to confront uncomfortable questions about their own practices and policies. Industry insiders report that multiple networks are conducting internal reviews of their safety protocols, insurance policies, and cast support systems in response to the revelations about Discovery's failures. The fear is palpable. If it can happen to a successful show like Street Outlaws, it can happen to any reality production. The scandal has also highlighted the broader issue of how reality TV participants are treated by the industry. Unlike actors in scripted television, reality TV cast members typically have fewer protections, less support, and more limited legal recourse when things go wrong. The Street Outlaws revelations have exposed how this power imbalance can be exploited by unscrupulous producers and network executives who prioritize profits over people. Industry-wide panic and changes are already beginning to manifest as networks scramble to avoid becoming the next Street Outlaws. Multiple sources within the industry report that emergency meetings have been held at major networks to review current productions and identify potential liability issues. These reviews have reportedly uncovered numerous safety violations and questionable practices that had previously been overlooked or ignored. The panic has led to immediate changes in how some productions operate. Several reality shows have reportedly increased their safety budgets, hired additional safety personnel, and implemented more stringent safety protocols. While these changes are positive, they also represent an admission that previous safety measures were inadequate, a fact that could have legal implications for ongoing and future lawsuits. The industry's response has also included efforts to improve support systems for cast members. Some networks have reportedly begun offering mental health services, addiction counseling, and other support resources to their reality TV participants. However, critics argue that these changes are too little, too late, and that they're motivated more by liability concerns than genuine care for cast members' well-being. The financial implications of the necessary changes are staggering. Industry analysts estimate that implementing proper safety protocols and support systems across all reality TV productions could cost networks hundreds of millions of dollars annually. This has led to discussions about whether some types of reality programming are simply too dangerous or expensive to produce safely, potentially leading to the cancellation of multiple shows. The scandal has also prompted discussions about regulation of the reality TV industry. Currently, reality TV productions operate with minimal oversight, relying largely on self-regulation and industry standards that are often inadequate. The Street Outlaws revelations have led to calls for government intervention, including mandatory safety standards, regular inspections, and stronger protections for cast members. Other celebrities and figures affected by the Street Outlaws scandal include not just the cast members and their families, but also sponsors, advertisers, and other personalities associated with the show. Major automotive companies that had sponsored the show have quietly distanced themselves from the production, canceling advertising deals and removing their branding from show-related content. This exodus of sponsors has had a significant financial impact on the show and has sent a clear message to other reality productions about the potential consequences of safety failures. The scandal has also affected other racing personalities and shows. Several other automotive reality shows have seen their own safety practices come under increased scrutiny, with fans and critics drawing comparisons to the Street Outlaws' failures. Some shows have proactively implemented additional safety measures and transparency initiatives to differentiate themselves from the troubled production. Celebrity endorsers and guest appearances on Street Outlaws have also been affected. Several high-profile personalities who had appeared on the show or endorsed it publicly have distanced themselves from the production, issuing statements expressing sympathy for the victims and their families while carefully avoiding any association with the show's problems. This celebrity exodus has further damaged the show's reputation and marketability. The impact has extended to the broader automotive and racing communities as well. Professional racing organizations have used the Street Outlaws scandal as an opportunity to highlight the importance of proper safety protocols and professional oversight. Some have explicitly criticized the show for promoting dangerous practices and for giving street racing a bad reputation. Cultural and social implications of the Street Outlaws scandal extend far beyond the entertainment industry to touch on broader issues of corporate responsibility, worker protection, and the ethics of reality television. The revelations have sparked discussions about the moral implications of turning real people's lives into entertainment, particularly when those people are vulnerable or facing personal challenges. The scandal has also highlighted the class dynamics inherent in reality television. Many of the Street Outlaws cast members came from working-class backgrounds and saw the show as an opportunity for financial advancement. The network's exploitation of these individuals for profit, while failing to provide adequate support or protection, represents a particularly egregious form of class exploitation that has resonated with audiences across socioeconomic lines. The cultural impact has been particularly significant in the automotive and racing communities, where Street Outlaws had been seen as a positive representation of car culture. The revelations about the show's problems have damaged the reputation of street racing and car culture more broadly, leading to increased scrutiny from law enforcement and negative stereotyping of automotive enthusiasts. The social media response to the scandal has also revealed broader issues about how audiences consume and respond to reality television. The initial fan loyalty to the show and its cast has given way to anger and demands for accountability, but this shift has also highlighted how audiences can be manipulated by carefully crafted narratives and how difficult it can be to separate entertainment from reality. The scandal has prompted broader discussions about the responsibility of audiences who consume reality television content. Critics argue that viewers bear some responsibility for the exploitation and dangers inherent in reality TV by creating demand for increasingly dramatic and dangerous content. This has led to calls for more conscious consumption of media and greater awareness of the human cost of entertainment. Where everyone stands now in the aftermath of these devastating revelations paints a picture of an industry in crisis and families still seeking justice for their lost loved ones. As of 2025, the Street Outlaws empire is a shadow of its former self, with multiple cast members dead, imprisoned, or struggling with the long-term consequences of their involvement in the show. The network continues to fight legal battles on multiple fronts while attempting to salvage what remains of the franchise's profitability. Ryan Fellow's family continues to grieve while navigating the complex legal landscape surrounding his wrongful death. Despite reportedly reaching a financial settlement with the network, sources close to the family indicate that they remain committed to ensuring that the truth about the circumstances of his death becomes public. The family has become advocates for improved safety standards in reality television production, working with other victims' families and safety organizations to push for meaningful reforms. Christopher Kentucky Ellis's family faces a different but equally challenging situation. Unlike Ryan's high-profile death, Kentucky's passing was largely ignored by the network and the media, leaving his family to cope with their loss while fighting for recognition of the circumstances that led to his death. Sources close to the family report that they are considering legal action against the network for their role in enabling Kentucky's addiction and failing to provide adequate support. The surviving cast members find themselves in various states of legal, financial, and personal crisis. Some have managed to distance themselves from the show and rebuild their lives, while others remain trapped by contractual obligations or financial necessities that force them to continue participating despite their concerns about safety and exploitation. The psychological toll on these individuals has been severe, with multiple cast members reportedly seeking therapy and treatment for trauma-related issues. Latest developments and updates continue to emerge as investigations progress and more evidence comes to light. Federal investigators are reportedly expanding their probe into the show's safety practices, with sources suggesting that criminal charges against network executives and production staff remain a possibility. The OSHA investigation has already resulted in multiple citations and fines, but critics argue that these penalties are insufficient given the severity of the safety failures. New lawsuits are being filed regularly as more victims and their families come forward with their stories. Legal experts predict that the total liability facing the network could reach into the hundreds of millions of dollars, potentially threatening the financial stability of the entire Discovery Channel operation. The network's insurance companies are reportedly fighting coverage claims, arguing that the safety failures were so egregious that they void the policy's protections. The show's production has been significantly scaled back, with multiple planned seasons canceled or postponed indefinitely. Sources within the industry report that the network is struggling to find cast members willing to participate given the safety concerns and legal risks. Those who do continue to participate are reportedly demanding significantly higher compensation and stronger safety guarantees, further increasing the show's production costs. Recent developments have also included the emergence of additional whistleblowers from within the production team. These individuals have provided new evidence of safety violations, cover-ups, and exploitation that extends the timeline of problematic behavior back to the show's earliest seasons. Their testimonies have strengthened the legal cases against the network and provided additional support for the families seeking justice. Ongoing legal and professional consequences continue to mount as the full scope of the network's failures becomes clear. Multiple class action lawsuits have been filed on behalf of cast members, crew members, and their families, alleging everything from wrongful death and personal injury to fraud and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The legal proceedings are expected to continue for years, with potentially devastating financial consequences for all parties involved. The professional consequences have been equally severe. Multiple network executives have been forced to resign or have been quietly reassigned to less visible positions. Production staff members who were involved in the safety failures have found themselves blacklisted from other projects, effectively ending their careers in the entertainment industry. The reputational damage to Discovery Channel as a whole has been significant, affecting their ability to attract talent and advertisers for other productions. The regulatory consequences are also beginning to manifest. Multiple government agencies are reviewing their oversight of reality television productions, with some proposing new regulations that would significantly increase safety requirements and oversight. These potential regulations could fundamentally change how reality TV is produced, making it more expensive and potentially less profitable for networks. The impact on the broader Street Outlaws franchise has been devastating. Multiple spin-off shows have been canceled, merchandise sales have plummeted, and licensing deals have been terminated. The brand that was once worth hundreds of millions of dollars has become a liability that the network is struggling to manage. This is the kind of content that changes industries. Show your support by hyping this video so more people see what's really happening. The ongoing drama has also affected the personal relationships between cast members, many of whom blame each other for the problems that have emerged. Former friends and racing partners have become adversaries in legal proceedings, with some cast members cooperating with investigators while others remain loyal to the network. These fractured relationships have added another layer of tragedy to an already devastating situation. The financial consequences for individual cast members have been severe. Many invested heavily in their racing operations based on the income from the show, and the reduction in production has left them with significant debts and limited income opportunities. Some have been forced to sell their cars and equipment, effectively ending their racing careers. Others have had to take on traditional employment to support their families, a difficult transition for individuals who had become accustomed to the lifestyle that came with reality TV fame. What's coming next in the Street Outlaws saga promises to be even more explosive than what we've already uncovered. Multiple sources close to the ongoing investigations have hinted that the worst revelations are yet to come, with evidence of criminal behavior, financial fraud, and systematic cover-ups that could bring down not just the show, but potentially the entire network. The federal investigation is reportedly expanding to include other Discovery Channel productions, suggesting that the problems at Street Outlaws may be symptomatic of broader issues within the company's reality TV operations. Legal experts predict that the criminal investigation will result in indictments within the next 6 months, with network executives and production staff facing potential charges ranging from criminally negligent homicide to racketeering. The evidence of systematic safety violations, combined with the cover-up efforts, has created a compelling case for criminal prosecution that could result in significant prison sentences for those responsible. The prospect of criminal charges has reportedly caused panic within the network's executive ranks, with some individuals reportedly cooperating with investigators in hopes of receiving leniency. The civil litigation is expected to continue for years, with potential settlements reaching into the hundreds of millions of dollars. However, legal experts warn that the network may attempt to declare bankruptcy or restructure their operations to avoid paying the full amount of damages owed to victims and their families. This possibility has prompted victims' attorneys to seek court orders freezing the network's assets and preventing any attempts to shield money from potential judgments. The regulatory response is also expected to intensify, with multiple government agencies proposing new rules and oversight mechanisms for reality television productions. These regulations could include mandatory safety inspections, required insurance coverage, and stronger protections for cast members. The implementation of these regulations could fundamentally change the economics of reality TV production, potentially making some types of shows financially unviable. Unresolved mysteries and questions continue to plague the Street Outlaws investigation, with many key questions still awaiting answers. The full extent of the network's knowledge about safety problems remains unclear, with investigators still working to determine how high up the corporate ladder the cover-up extended. The role of insurance companies in enabling the unsafe practices is also under investigation, with questions about whether they were aware of the problems and failed to take appropriate action. One of the most disturbing unresolved questions involves the potential existence of additional victims whose stories have not yet come to light. Investigators are reportedly reviewing the show's entire production history, looking for evidence of other accidents, injuries, or deaths that may have been covered up. The possibility that Ryan Fellows and Kentucky Ellis were not the only casualties of the show's negligent practices has created additional urgency around the investigation. The financial arrangements between the network and cast members also remain largely mysterious, with questions about whether cast members were adequately compensated for the risks they were taking and whether they were provided with accurate information about those risks. The contracts between the network and cast members are reportedly heavily weighted in favor of the network, with provisions that may have prevented cast members from seeking adequate medical care or legal representation when problems arose. The role of sponsors and advertisers in enabling the show's problems is another area that requires further investigation. Questions remain about whether these companies were aware of the safety issues and chose to continue their support anyway, or whether they were deliberately kept in the dark by the network. The answers to these questions could have significant implications for the broader entertainment industry and the responsibilities of companies that profit from reality TV content. Potential future revelations could include evidence of additional criminal behavior, including fraud, tax evasion, and money laundering. Sources close to the investigation have hinted that the financial arrangements surrounding the show were more complex and potentially illegal than previously understood. The possibility of additional criminal charges beyond those related to the safety failures could further devastate the network and its executives. There are also indications that the problems at Street Outlaws may have extended to other Discovery Channel productions, with investigators reportedly looking into safety practices and cast treatment across the network's entire reality TV portfolio. The discovery of systematic problems across multiple shows could result in a complete restructuring of how Discovery Channel operates and could set precedents that affect the entire reality TV industry. The potential for additional whistleblowers to come forward remains high, with sources suggesting that many current and former employees are still afraid to speak out due to legal threats and non-disclosure agreements. However, the success of previous whistleblowers in exposing the truth may encourage others to come forward, potentially providing additional evidence of wrongdoing and cover-ups. The international implications of the scandal are also beginning to emerge, with questions about how the show's problems may have affected international versions and spin-offs. The global reach of the Street Outlaws brand means that the safety failures and exploitation may have had victims in multiple countries, potentially leading to additional legal and regulatory consequences. Final community engagement and the path forward requires continued vigilance and pressure from fans, viewers, and the general public to ensure that justice is served and that meaningful reforms are implemented. The power of social media and grassroots activism has been crucial in bringing these issues to light and maintaining pressure on the network and investigators to pursue the truth. We're about to reveal the most shocking part, but first, if this expose has blown your mind, give it the hype it deserves. The families of the victims continue to need support, both financial and emotional, as they navigate the complex legal and personal challenges that result from their losses. Supporting these families and honoring the memory of those who died is not just a moral imperative, but also a way to ensure that their sacrifices lead to meaningful changes that prevent future tragedies. The broader implications for the reality TV industry require continued attention and activism to ensure that the reforms being discussed are actually implemented and enforced. The entertainment industry has a long history of promising changes in response to scandals, only to return to problematic practices once public attention moves elsewhere. Maintaining pressure for real, lasting change is essential to preventing future tragedies. The Street Outlaws scandal has also highlighted the need for better protections for reality TV participants, including stronger contracts, better insurance coverage, and more robust support systems. Advocating for these changes and supporting organizations that work to protect reality TV participants is another way that concerned individuals can help prevent future exploitation and abuse. The ultimate goal must be to create an entertainment industry that values human life and dignity above profits and ratings. The Street Outlaws scandal has shown us the devastating consequences of prioritizing entertainment value over basic human decency. By continuing to demand accountability, supporting victims and their families, and pushing for meaningful reforms, we can help ensure that no other families have to endure the pain and loss that has resulted from this tragic situation. The story of Street Outlaws is far from over. As investigations continue, legal proceedings unfold, and more evidence emerges, we will continue to follow this story and provide updates on the latest developments. The truth about what happened behind the scenes of this once popular show must be told, and those responsible for the tragedies that occurred must be held accountable. Only by shining a light on these dark practices can we hope to prevent similar tragedies in the future and create a safer, more ethical entertainment industry for everyone involved.